Welcome, James Tripp. I've
Thank you.
been excited to have you along. I've watched a fair bit of your stuff on YouTube over the years, and
Cool.
I've seen you fairly active on socials
hmm
uh, at different times, and different times quiet,
Yes, I come and go.
which is good. It's a healthy thing to do.
I think so, yeah.
Uh, Now, you've got a diverse approach with what you work with. I've seen you work with hypnosis and with NLP. I know you work with Tai Chi and energy and martial arts. So I'm curious about what actually got you into the, I guess, scene of trying to work with and understand consciousness.
Right. Well, that's a good question. I had a strange kind of childhood in that I used to get these night terrors 3 times a week, approximately 3 times a week, and they were very, very vivid. And I would wake up from them, and the things in the dreams would then be in real space, and they would be as real as anything in the real space. So there might have been used to have a recurring one about this hunchback, and this hunchback would be in real space in my home, and that kind of freaked me out when I was a kid, quite significantly. Uh, and I didn't realize it at the time when I was a kid, but I was pretty much afraid of everything. That was it seems weird to say I was afraid of everything, but didn't know it, because I had no contrast point. I wasn't able to sort of step back from the fear. It just seemed like the world was a terrifying place, and I felt kind of unsettled a lot. And I've never found any reason for this. I did some regression work on it years later, and supposedly it seemed to be some exposure to cortisol within the womb when the regression work was done. But who knows? It could be a construct. But I had this stuff going on when I was a kid. I hated school, and I was always looking forward to being an adult and leaving school. Like when I'm an adult, I won't have to have all these people telling me what to do, and which I hate. And then when I became an adult, of course, it wasn't like the pressures of life went away and I was free, which is how I'd projected things to be. The pressures of life got harder because now I had rent to pay and I had all kinds of stuff to do, and I still had terrible social anxiety. And anxiety about everything, which I used to manage with my own prescriptions, largely alcohol-based and other substances and that kind of thing. So when I was in work and I was about 19, probably 19 years old, I was the combination of my self-prescription and just the general stuff in the background. It kind of hit breaking point, and I got signed off work for mental health issues and put under a psychiatrist who was frankly old school Freudian and useless. But I remember I was signed off work and I was out driving. I was on these antidepressants and other stuff at the time. And I hated the effect of those because it just kind of numbed everything. And I was out driving and thinking, where does my life go from here? And it's almost like I could see either I was going to kind of live into this mental health problem thing, in which case I was going to end up sectioned, which is how it was in the UK at the time. I knew people who'd been sectioned for mental health issues, i.e. locked up and not free to come and go. Mm. And I thought, well, I don't fancy that one flew over the cuckoo's nest thing, because I've seen that. And that's where I'm headed. So the other direction is back into the world. And I had this epiphany, which was that the world is not going to reorganize itself to suit my needs. I've got to develop some kind of game, some kind of understanding for managing life and working with life, because I'm screwed if I don't. And I didn't know where to begin with that, because I was kind of raised very much with a fixed mindset. We are what we are. You've got the talents you've got the character you've got. That's just the way it is. So I didn't see a lot of choice at the time, but I knew I had to do something. I had to find some leverage, some place where I could have power with a world that felt overwhelming to me at that age. And I started off reading a bunch of stuff on parapsychology, and on quantum physics. And it wasn't because it was just sheer desperation. I looked around, I found a book on parapsychology in our house that my brother had read a few years ago, or he'd got from a secondhand bookshop and never read, I think. So I kind of started reading that. It's called Parapsychology and the Nature of Life by John Randall. I can't pretend it was useful in any way. It wasn't, and neither was the quantum physics stuff. I read a lot of Paul Davis books, God and the New Physics, and things like this. And I was just clutching at straws. And I thought to myself, the quantum physics stuff, I thought, well, if I can understand the underpinnings of the universe, maybe that will give me some kind of edge. And it sounds ludicrous. It doesn't sound the most pragmatic channel, but it was, I just literally couldn't think of anything else. And so I guess at that point, I became what some people might call a seeker, seeking answers. What the hell is going on? How does this all work? And it was just like, if I can figure out how this all works, then I'll be able to find the hidden leverage points. I'll be able to work with it somehow, whatever all this is, life, the universe, and everything. And so that was kind of my path. I started reading things. I booked late on a philosophy degree. So I did a philosophy degree at university when I was in my early 20s. I didn't have any qualifications because I didn't do well at school. So I had to do an Access course, Access to Higher Education in the UK. And I did the philosophy degree because I thought, well, maybe a philosophy degree, maybe these wise philosophers will provide answers. It was largely in the Anglo-American sort of analytic philosophy tradition. So it wasn't really about wise answers. It was about sharpening your critical faculty and being able to use wield the sword of reason and logic. So I didn't get a lot of wisdom from the course, which is what I was looking for. But around about during that time, when I was at some point during that 3-year degree, my mum gave me a book that she'd found in a bargain bin in a shop called The Art of Qigong by Wong Q Kit. And this book, when I read the beginnings of this book, it was selling me everything I wanted. Like, if I did this Qigong thing, I was going to end up with health, vitality, courage, psychic powers, all manner of stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm in. This is the thing. I'm going to do this thing. So I started doing these Qigong practices, and they were simple practices. But immediately, I experienced a massive shift in my well-being and my outlook and my experience of the world, my experience of myself. And of course, now I can look back, I can say, well, was it placebo? Was it whatever? Was it just the fact that I was doing something? I don't really know, and I don't overanalyze it, but I got a huge shift. And this pulled me into the world of Qigong, of Chinese martial arts, of Taoism. And I kind of went deep into that. And that's the kind of start. So having started with the parapsychology and the quantum stuff when I was 19, it wasn't until I was about 22, 23 that I actually really started to feel like I was making breakthroughs and getting somewhere. And that was down to the Qigong stuff and a lot of the Taoist philosophy that underpinned it. So even now, in the stuff that I do now, in my coaching and all sorts of stuff, Taoism, the influence of Taoism is very, very strong. I've had some coaching clients say to me, like, wow, I've had quite a few coaches and you're the only one that really kind of brings this Taoist perspective to it. And it influences everything I do. It influences my approach to hypnosis and so much. And it's weird because I almost don't realize how much it influences me because it's so much in my background, Taoism. And it was the way I learned, or the way I was exposed to Taoism was also not through books. It was through teachers who were not directly teaching Taoism. They were teaching Taoist practices. So, I'm a kind of weird Taoist in that some people say, oh, have you read the Tao Te Ching? No. I haven't read anything on Taoism. I just got saturated in it for years from teachers who weren't teaching Taoism. They were teaching other stuff from a Taoist perspective. So, more of late, I've actually read some stuff on Taoism to go, oh yeah. That's like intuitively, I get that that's in my reality tunnel now, and I can see it more explicitly. But that was a big thing, and that really kind of set me on the path. I was in that for a number of years, and I got into Russian martial arts. And my martial arts phase, I went completely berserk, doing it for years. It was my thing. I was a martial arts teacher. And then about 2001, 2002, I saw Darren Brown just after his first TV special on a talk show. And he blew my mind. And I just thought, well, whatever that guy's doing, I want to know how to do that. So I immediately jumped on the internet, which was a very different thing in 2002.
It was.
It was, no video, anything like that, just text and stuff. And I did some research on Darren Brown. I found a thing called the Darren Brown resource page. And it was a list of books. That's all it was. It had about 20 books on this list saying, you want to know what Darren Brown does? Read these books. And it was quite a diverse list. And one of the books on there was Introducing NLP by John Seymour and Joseph O'Connor. And I read that, and that absolutely blew my mind. And there was one simple idea that blew my mind hugely in it, which was that people are basically collections of largely learned patterns. Whatever it is that people can do, whatever talent they appear to have, it's a bunch of patterns. It's mappable, it's modelable. You can get data from that. You can bring it into yourself more. The personality was really just a collection of patterns that you accrued at some point. And this idea of patterns and of being able to model and transform patterns, that just gripped me. And from that point on, I really started to lean into sort of rebuilding myself and repatterning myself. And it was at that phase, probably mid 2000s, because I was studying the NLP stuff, and then I got into a situation in my life where I was kind of in over my head. That's when I was training as an osteopath, and I really had to do a lot of self-transformation work in order to stay in the game. And from that point, about the mid 2000s, I just went absolutely kind of crazy, repatterning myself, transforming my way of being in the world. Not just through NLP and what NLP offered, but I started to really kind of lean into a lot of other stuff and a lot of other technology. So people generally know me as a hypnotist because around 2010, I started blogging about hypnosis because I was doing street hypnosis at the time. But really, it's a distorted perception that people have, because the reason I was blogging about hypnosis is because hypnosis was one tiny bit of what I was doing at the time. But of course, that's the thing I blogged about. So nobody else saw all the other stuff. And they go, oh yeah, James is a hypnosis guy. But hypnosis was just part of a much, much bigger picture for me. And I love hypnosis, I really do. But it's been a bit of a double-edged sword for me, and that many times I've wanted to start to say to people, look at all this other cool stuff. And some people who are into my hypnosis stuff go, oh yeah, I'm into that too. But a lot of people go, oh, have you got any more hypnosis products? Or can you show me another way of sticking somebody to something or something like that? And it's like, yeah, the stuff's cool. I still play with it. I still play with kind of street hypnosis stuff. I still do impromptu hypnosis from time to time. But really kind of where my heart is in exploration, self-transformation, literally kind of like, repatterning your engagement with life and what kind of results you get as an outcome from that. Because that's the thing I've always been into. That preceded my interest in hypnosis. And, will outlive it, no doubt,
That's where the real power in it is anyway, if you're going to use it. It's to use it for that.
Right.
Sticking somebody's hand to a wall doesn't achieve much, other than proving if I can stick your hand to the wall, I can make a change in your life. That's it.
Right. I'm kind of actually starting to play again. One of the things I want to do with the hypnotic phenomena stuff, and partly this is driven by the fact that I'm known as a hypnotist, and people want more stuff from me in that area. I actually have to stop teaching hypnosis for a bit. I'm going to put together a new program, and then I'm not teaching live anymore. I know I said this last year, and I've done 2 workshops since, but it's really important for me to stop teaching my old stuff and my old perspectives and my old beliefs. Because if I want to do something truly creative and really explore the deeper potential of hypnosis, it's like I have to burn everything I currently believe about it and start from scratch and go, well, what else is possible? Where else could this go? So stuff like, even playing with hypnotic phenomena, I'm starting to think, you say to people, a lot of hypnotherapists say, well, what's this good for? And people go, well, it's good for a convincer. I'm like, I get that. I get you can use it as a convincer, but I have a sense that there is a way richer potential in this. And what I'm much more interested in is, how can we use all manner of exotic hypnotic experiences, or just exotic experiences, if I even take the hypnosis off and just go crazy stuff, what can we do to really hack people's reality tunnels, the stuff that keeps them locked down, start using it in the form of undoing people's perceptions about what is or isn't so it can really kind of free them up to go beyond. And I think there's a lot of richness in what people classically look at as hypnosis that is kept from coming to fruition by existing beliefs about what hypnosis is and what isn't. And I'm not just talking about the old school stuff that I thought, I'm calling that out with hypnosis without trance. I'm talking about my own stuff. I'm talking about my own frames, my own perceptions,
That's
my own paradigms.
That's putting yourself into using your practices. You've said it. You're in your reality tunnel of practicing.
Yeah.
Unless you completely throw that framework out and try a completely new one out,
Right.
You're not going to find your approach.
Yeah, and it's also seeing these reality tunnels. Here's a good example. A lot of people would perceive science and religion as diametrically opposed things. But if you look at the sort of dominant paradigms, the dominant Western scientific paradigms, they're actually structured very similarly to the Christian paradigms that they come from. So, we still got a dualism. We've still got a split between mind-body that comes from Descartes. There's this sort of dualistic thing going on. And you've still got this idea that there are universal truths to be discovered. It's just now that they're the laws of nature rather than the laws of God. And there's a lot of the similar structuring. There's like both Christianity and science believe in an objective truth that you get to somehow, either through your religion or whatever. So it can look like the modern Western scientific tradition is sort of a rejection of Christianity. But actually, if you pull back, there's still a lot of the same organizing principles in the mix. And to me, this is a metaphor for like my hypnosis without trance approach. Like I really felt like I was rejecting some fundamental things about hypnosis and going, look, it's not really like this, it's like that. But when I pull back, those objections seem superficial, and there's a wider frame of presuppositions that I'm still operating from, which I think they're going to be inherently limiting. They have to be inherently limiting. They're just going to get you more of the same unless you bust them out. So I want to get to the business of busting those out. And I was going to do a little video for YouTube a while ago saying, are you willing to burn hypnosis? What if to take your hypnosis to another level, you had to burn everything you believed about hypnosis, every idea, every thought? What if that's what needed to happen? And that's, a lot of people don't want to do that. I'm cautious about doing that, right? Because, I've learned all this stuff and it's cool and I love it and it works for me and it serves me in so many ways. But it's a case of, what got you here ain't what's going to get you there. So to me, it's like I want this opportunity to step back from it and just go, torch the lot, and then just start playing again from an attempt to get beyond those embedded beliefs about how it works and what's possible and what's not and all of that kind of thing. I'll see how it goes. See what comes from it.
I'll be interested to follow that. I know my view of hypnosis changed drastically when I started playing with Bob Burns's Swan. because that pointed out to me the subconscious is always listening. You don't need trance, kind of like your approach.
Hmm.
And then I realized, yeah, I don't even need the swan sometimes. It just
Right, right.
gets
Yeah,
its attention. It works.
yeah,
So I understand that dynamic, and I'm constantly trying to break what I know and try new things. But it's a very hard thing to do because, like you've said before, which I haven't asked you on this, so other people don't know this yet. Of when you're in that reality tunnel, you can't see that reality tunnel to work out
yeah,
what you
yeah.
need to break out from.
Right. That's the trick. You know, the way I have a short form on this, which is you cannot see what you are seeing the world through.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing. If you and to disembed from that and look at that and see it, um, you know, is a useful thing. And really, people want to know what to do once they look and see their own reality tunnels. But like you say with the swan, and you recognize, you know, the unconscious mind is always listening, is always there, is always learning as well. You know, whatever label you use, I have a great belief that when people actually see their own reality tunnels and go, "Oh, that's what I've been doing. That's how I've been organizing this." You know, they suddenly see it. When they really see it, their whatever you call it, their inner mind, the deep intelligence within them, just says, "Oh yeah, yeah, I just sort that out like that." You know, when people, so I've got this real belief in the power of consciousness of seeing, of truly seeing. And I believe that when people truly see their own structures that they've been bound by, and by that I mean like they see it for themselves, not my opinion of what their structure is or whatever. It's like not like a Freudian thing where Freud dumps on his framework. I mean, people go, and the consciousness kind of connects up a circuit where the innate intelligence that built every single way of being in the world for them already goes, oh yeah, I just, yeah, and things drop away. So I end up speaking to people. I was talking to somebody yesterday who was saying, you know, I had this thing going on where I'd get caught up worrying about stuff, and I don't know why it's gone, and I don't quite know why it's gone. And I do think I know where it's gone and why it's gone. Where it's gone is, well, it wasn't really ever there. It was an in the moment creation based on certain rules, but certain reality tunnels. But I think that this person just came to see something differently, came to see what they were not seeing before, i.e., how they were creating it and how it was actually based on ideas that weren't really the case. And the whole thing just fell away. And I see this a lot when people just get this kind of connection up the circuit and the innate intelligence of their system, um, which is, I tend to not to speak about the unconscious mind because that rendering doesn't resonate for me, but some people do, and that's fine. I always think of the innate intelligence of the system. And the system is ambiguous because it could be the system that is this person, all that they are, but it could also be the system that is this person in their context, in their environment. So the innate intelligence of the system, I don't know how big that maybe is, but I do know that there seems to be quite a lot of, I can make certainly a good case, good clear case that it's there. This kind of organizing intelligence that reorganizes things when it gets the opportunity to see things in a different way. So I'm, you know, a lot of my work is just about helping people get into their reality tunnels. And a lot of people go, so how do I change that now? And sometimes I give people a how to. But the truth of the matter is once you start getting into the work, I don't think you really need to do the how to bit because the innate intelligence of the system, it's like if you're stabbing yourself in the leg with a fork, but you don't realize it. And then you go, oh shit, I'm doing that. You don't have to really do anything to stop, right? It's the only reason you were doing it in the first place is because you couldn't really see what was happening. You didn't really know what was going on, you know?
The problem is seeing it. I know I've found myself stuck in loops of
Mm,
issues before, and I've tried self hypnosis for weeks, got nowhere.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
a student of mine, I go and see every now and then for a session, and within 5 minutes, pretty much every time, she works out what I'm not seeing. that I can get past because
Right.
stuck in this tunnel.
Yeah. Right. That's a huge thing. I mean, like, sometimes because people expect me to do a lot of hypnosis, they'll hire me for coaching. I've actually had to say now, if you hire me for coaching, I may or may not use hypnosis with you. Um, and it depends on how you define hypnosis and all of these kinds of things. Because I want to help people make a shift. And it depends on the client as to what's going to seem like the best way to go with that. But I always want to do what I think is best for the client, not just be the dancing monkey that does the thing that they want.
Yes.
Right. So I want to serve the client rather than please the client. So I have to make it clear. Don't come to me if you want to prescribe to me how we're going to work together, because I just want to do what I think, what intuitively seems like the right thing in that moment. So I've got really clear on that. But much of the time, my work is simply shining a spotlight on something that they're not seeing. Because I've got very good at being able to kind of navigate reality tunnels within myself. So I'm actually very good generally at seeing how people are structuring them just when they start to speak and then start to move. And because I can generally see what other people cannot see, and I don't argue with people. I've got a rule, which is never argue about what is or isn't so. I will say, well, how about that? What about, do you think that might be that? And it's either going to resonate with them or not. And I think if you point out a true feature of somebody's reality tunnel and you do it in a gentle enough way, when they see it, there's something in their system goes ding, and they have that, something shifts immediately. And you see the shift and they experience the shift. I mean, the shift is known as the aha moment, the epiphany, the whatever, the kind of, I sometimes see clients like they'll be going, and they'll suddenly go, or something like that. Now, I know once that's happened, where I come from, a shift has happened because they're a smart individual. They're not dumb. They have this profound intelligence that is them, that they are of, that when they, and from that point, this is where, whenever these things happen, this is where people go, well, I don't know, it just kind of lifted. And, they get that real shift, and it's like hard for them to go back to seeing it the way it was before. So I'm kind of a lot of the time just shining this spotlight of consciousness on this thing. And the point that you said about the swan and the idea that the unconscious or this profound intelligence is always present, I do remind people of that a lot. I'll say to people like, so now you're seeing it differently. And you're a smart guy. You have a profound intelligence that is present right now, whether you're recognizing this or not. So I do remind people that, like, this isn't just a fleeting moment that's going to be some conscious mind shift. There's a deeper thing happening here. And I invite people, I set up conditions, and I invite people to notice the difference in their life going forward. That's a big piece of how I do change work. Because the fact of the matter is difference is the engine of change. And if people have a habit of sorting for sameness, they can convince themselves that there's been no change where there's been change. They can have huge amounts of change and go, yeah, but let's like a tickle of this, or there's something. It's just a habit of mental sorting. But when people start to look for difference, I'm a great believer that spotlight of consciousness completes a circuit that is profoundly generative. So if the circuit lands on difference, it amplifies and generates more difference and opens up more possibility. If the consciousness circuit lands on sameness, it will tend to entrench that sameness. So I'm often working with people to help them reset their attentional patterns, so they start tracking for change and difference, which they will automatically, due to the wisdom of the system, the intelligence that they are of, leverages out that difference. I really like Bob's Swan, by the way. And I've only just got into it, weirdly.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is really, because Bob sent me a copy of that when he first put it out. He's like put it out to people and said, review this. And And to be honest with you, and I said this to Bob at the time, I think he was a little bit disappointed. I said, well, it's just like an idiomotor thing. It's just idiomotor stuff, right?
That gets
Um, yeah. And he's like, ah. And really, to me, I'm like, well, I've seen this hand position before, and I've seen finger singles. Never seen anyone do the hand turn. But I play around with hypnotic phenomena a lot, and I was like, well, it's not like it's not radical, it's not groundbreaking. I did really like his framing and the way he set it up and stuff like that. So I never really did much with it, never really played with it. And then for some reason, about 6, 8 months ago, um, I started playing with it. And one of the things that I immediately noticed was that people can be like, they can get finger signals, and they can be like, oh, yeah, that's cool. But when that hand turns, there's just something about that hand turning bit. I think it triggers something archetypal in people. I think it fires up some deeper stuff in the system. I don't know how, or I don't know why, but I've seen it enough times now that the hand turning, and I think there's a representation of looking at something and looking in the face, even though it hasn't necessarily been explicitly defined that this might be the face of the inner intelligence. But there's something about the structure, in my view, that fires up something really deeply archetypal and possibly very old and foundational in the human system.
Well, I use it with a past therapy basis, kind of like what Bob does, but I'll use it for a part that's specific with whatever issue. So the reality tunnel they're in is what I'm picking out. And so they're staring that reality in the face. And then they're hearing its view. And you can get it to agree on having a play with a different view, trying something completely different. You've played your game for 30 years, it's got you nowhere. Play mine. Just test it for a week, see how it goes. And it can be quite powerful. But then after that, I ask it if it's been listening to my previous conversations.
Right.
Before I've done any work.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it says yes.
Yeah.
Today I actually had one that it said no.
Right.
And that's the first I've had in months where it said no. And that proves to me it was already paying attention. It just wasn't playing the game yet. Until I danced with it, and then it did.
Yeah. Which I think is fair enough, because like I'm a great believer in buy-in. A person's got to buy in to what you're doing, to you, to the process. Of course, that doesn't mean, that means they have to buy in all that they are. You want them turning up and listening. This is why, I often debate with people. Some people are like, no, hypnosis is definitely mind control. And if you don't recognize hypnosis as mind control, you are like a cruddy hypnotist. And that's some people's view, because I'm always saying like hypnosis isn't mind control. Yeah. And someone will send me a video and go, watch him control her mind. I'm like, yeah, but she's agreed to engage in the process.
Yeah.
Right? She showed up, she's engaging. There's buy-in, even with covert hypnosis. If somebody is buying in, they're buying in. Anyone can turn around and go, you're full of shit. People can do that by not buying in, by buying into something else, their existing reality, buying into an unconscious loop that says this guy's a jerk, right? So far as I'm concerned, like buy-in is a hugely important thing, and that isn't a conscious mind decision. That buy-in is when the unconscious mind, the deeper intelligence of the system is like, I'm paying attention, I'm interested, I'm up for this. Whatever this is, whether it's the swan, whether it's any other process, that person's got to be like, there's something here for me, and I want to be in with this. Of course, the unconscious mind can be like, no, I'm not listening.
Yeah, the benefits of whatever the change is got to be have got to outweigh whatever cost it's got to play into to make that.
Right. Yeah. That is a huge thing for me. Cost benefit analysis. I've been playing with this for about a year now, since I saw Felix Economakis do a demo. Have you seen Felix's?
Yeah, project? I had an eating disorder till I met him a couple of years.
Right. So that piece, I love his structuring of that. But the idea and the metaphor he puts up in the framing around cost benefit analysis, that really resonated for me, or at least I think that's how he talked about it, because I've seen him demo it once. And the way I work is I'll see somebody do something, and if I think it's cool, I go off and do what I think is something like it. But obviously, I'm going to end up polluting it with my own perspectives and all of this kind of thing. So I don't know whether what I do is how similar or different it is from what Felix is doing.
Yeah.
But the cost benefit analysis piece is gold.
It is. I stole that from my sales background years ago.
Right.
Instantly, that was in my hypnosis one.
Mm.
Felix had a sales background as well. That's where I'm sure he would have got it.
Right. And I can see that from the way he runs his process, because it's like the whole thing is like a sales job. It's like, right, here we are. I'm going to do my pitch now.
The bit of his process that worked for me, because I'd tried different things before and I'd just hit a wall,
Yeah.
was the experiment.
Right.
He talks about being scientific and doing an experiment.
Right.
That's what sold it to my
Mm.
subconscious, whatever. The part that
Mm.
was not playing the game got on board. At that
Right.
moment, I felt the gear shift inside.
That's cool. That's really interesting to hear that, actually, because as I say, I watched Felix demo that once. I haven't learnt his process. And, I'm a cannibal. I just go, I like that bit. I like that bit. I like that bit. I'll take that. And of all the bits, I never really, that bit I didn't take. I didn't really use that experiment bit. But it's great to hear you say how much of an impact that it had with you, because, well, now I will. I will play with that aspect of the set. So it's really cool. I really think I liked Felix's process a lot. Felix's style of facilitation is very different from mine, and it's not my cup of tea. But I think that set, when I watched it, I was like, man, this is rich. There is a lot of richness in this. There's a lot of really nice bits and pieces in, really nice bits of business. So I think it's a great piece. I was sat with a friend of mine, and I won't say who it was, when we were watching it. And I was like, this is great. There's so much value in this. And this friend was like, not for me. I'm like, oh, what a shame. There's so much. Maybe it's like me with the Swan when I was originally, well, not for me. There was richness in it, which I wasn't seeing at the time. So Bob will be thrilled that I'm saying this on here, no doubt. But yeah, it's all good stuff.
So with the reality tunnels, when did they pop up on your radar? Was it from Timothy Leary, Robert Anton Wilson, something back with Plato's Cave from philosophy days?
I'm not a big Plato fan. I've got some issues with Plato, but that's a point aside. The term reality tunnels, I'm trying to think where I first heard that term. And it's not all that easy to remember, because when I was a kid, when I was about like 13, 14, my brother, who's a couple of years older than me, used to hang around with a guy called Kevin. Kevin was a big Robert Anton Wilson fan. And he's a few years older than my brother even. So probably when I was about 13, Kevin would have been about 17, 18. Would have seemed really like old to me, really sophisticated. And to me, he was a cool guy because he played guitar in a rock band and was just into this stuff. And at the time, that stuff was like over my head. I just see the covers of the Robert Anton Wilson books. And there was something like that resonated there. And I may have heard the term reality tunnel initially from him, but there wouldn't have been any deep conversation about it. And then at some point later on, I kind of got a bit into Robert Anton Wilson myself. So I heard him use the term. I don't know, would have just kind of emerged in consciousness. My friend James Tsoukalos, who you know James Tsoukalos. Do you know James Tsoukalos? So he's here at the moment. He's just like in this flat right now. He was saying yesterday about source amnesia.
Yes,
right.
I have that.
So right, so like he did this thing on me. I'll do it on you right now. Do you know the capital of Egypt?
Cairo?
Right. I thought it was a trick question too. So here's the thing. Have you ever been to Cairo?
No.
Right. So how do you know Cairo is the capital of Egypt?
Probably from a cartoon, if I'm honest.
Right. Is that guesswork, or do you remember that first being?
It'd be guesswork, completely.
Right. It's guesswork because at some point you became aware, somebing told you that Cairo was the capital of Egypt.
Hmm.
And the thing that James was pointing out yesterday is it's amazing how much of what we know we have complete source amnesia for.
Hmm.
So I don't know the reality tunnel stuff. I can guess, like you can guess cartoon for Cairo. I can go, maybe it was Kevin, maybe it was, I don't know. But what I do know is this: as a metaphor, I really like it. And I like the tunnel bit because of the nature of states of mind or trances or whatever has a huge exclusionary factor. Even James Braid talked about this because he wanted to, after he'd sort of seeded the idea of neurohypnotism and this idea of this special state. In his later work, he moved away from the special state idea and said, I got it all wrong. Let's drop this idea of hypnosis. It's got nothing to do with sleep. I propose we call this monoideism.
Mm.
And mono, meaning single, ideism, the sort of wrapping of the mind around a single idea. And what that means is every other idea is gone. It's excluded. Every other way of seeing, every other way of thinking, every other possibility is outside of this particular experience. So I really like the idea I like the metaphor of reality tunnel. I like the language of it. For me, it's a poetic term more than a scientific term, in that it gets this idea of a tunnel and we get right. So when I'm seeing it like this, what is everything else that I'm not seeing? What is every other way of experiencing it that is excluded from this? So that's why the term really kind of resonates for me. I probably heard it from Wilson before hearing it from Timothy Leary. I haven't had a huge amount of exposure to Timothy Leary. I've got a couple of his books, which I've probably read 20% of each one. And I have read John Higgs' phenomenal biography of Timothy Leary, which is called I Have America Surrounded, which is really, really great read. As are all of John Higgs' books, in my view. But that's kind of like where I got it from, I think. And I also have a distinction between a reality tunnel versus a trance. And some people might go, well, James, that seems like not an overly important distinction, because I think any reality tunnel that we're in has an accompanying trance that emerges from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But to me, the trance is the actual state and experience itself. And the reality tunnel is what it's built from in terms of conceptualizations and ideas and unconscious filters and all of this kind of thing. So I think it's kind of useful distinction because a lot of the time I know a lot of people who are NLPers and stuff who are trying to work directly with the trance and often try and collapse it down. They'll elicit a different trance and they'll try and collapse this one with that one. And that can sometimes feed back into the underpinnings of the trance and change things, but often it just doesn't.
Mm.
You get a kind of temporary effect from it. And I'm not saying it can't be useful as a tool, because sometimes if someone's caught in a particular trance and but that from within that trance, they're unable to work resourcefully with anything, then I can see that it's useful to shift state and shift them into a more useful place to work from. But I tend to want to get into the underpinnings of the trance rather than just working at that trance level itself, because that's where the real power is coming from. I could be a fantastic hypnotist, but if somebody goes away and keeps running the same self-hypnosis they were running before I came in, then my suggestions are going to be in competition with theirs.
Yeah.
And the truth is they're a lot more rehearsed in doing their worldview than the one that I may have just laid on them. So I don't want to go head to head at that trance level. I want to get into those underpinnings, get into the reality tunnel material and help to get shifts at that level.
Yeah. Well, with trying to keep in framework of that reality tunnel, if their tunnel puts them in a thing that when they're in a certain situation, they have this reaction. So they're in that trance doing their automated reaction. You switch it out, put something else in, that's only going to fragment it, that their processing is going to notice that for that little bit. Next time, you've got a million layers of their tunnel with this watermark image of whatever you try to trance over the top.
Yeah.
At best case, it's a cheap trick to get a result that it might go, okay, yeah, I'll do the same as whatever the ghost was last time.
Yeah.
Telling it, look at this new perspective, turn the tunnel to face this way, see where that road goes. That, from my experience, gets somewhere. You can always go back to the old tunnel.
Right. And I think...
You know what that is. You've got a map.
Yeah. I think people can always go back to their old tunnel, their old reality tunnel, until they can't.
Yeah. Well, once you and the new way is better, you can't.
Yeah, and this is a major thing where cost-benefit analysis comes in. This is one of the things I like about Felix's process, to take it at a level of principles rather than looking at actually how Felix does it. One of the things that kind of fed into how I work is, like, if I'm working with you, it's me and you coaching that aspect of self. So it's the idea that, like, let's call it a part. The part's doing its thing, and it's damn proud of how it's doing its thing, and it's damn sure it's doing the right thing. So my first position is, like, the client, maybe the client can see that that's not working out. The client, when they're in their transcendent self, is doing a different cost-benefit analysis from the part. And obviously it's not enough for the client in their transcendent self to be convinced that cost-benefit analysis is better. You've got to get in and you've got to coach that part. You've got to get that part to, or until that part shifts. I'm not going to say you've got to get that part, because one of my rules in change work is nobody's got to do anything, right? That's a rule. There's no rule in the universe that says anybody has to do anything. The part hasn't got to change. But the part is not going to change until it sees things differently. And when I think the part itself, or the reality tunnel, or whatever, there's different ways of pointing to the same stuff, really gets it, then I think that the old reality tunnel often does pretty much completely dissolve. And there may be the potential for it to fire up, for it to get temporary amnesia for the new way that it's sought. I don't know, but often you can get that complete dissolving. There's an idea from Osho. Osho says, really, most people's problems in life are akin to them struggling through life carrying a massive sack of rocks. And they can feel the rocks weighing them down, and they can feel that they're tired, and they can feel that they feel like they can't go on and they're lacking energy. But they're not seeing that they're carrying a sack of rocks. So all you really need to do is very kindly and very gently and very lovingly point out to the person, say, excuse me, you do know you're carrying this big sack of rocks. And if they see it, if they really see it, and they go, oh, they don't have to do anything to put the rocks down. It's just a no-brainer. It's like, oh, shit, can't believe I'm carrying those rocks. And they put the rocks down, they move on with their life, and it's like, oh, I feel so much lighter now. I feel so much better. And that's the reality of it. But what often happens is you would do the equivalent of lovingly pointing out the carrying a sack of rocks, and they go, all right, yeah, rocks. And you're like, why haven't they put the rocks down? And it's because they're not really seeing that they're rocks. They're still connected to the idea that something in that bag is valuable, right? Yeah, but there's diamonds in the bag as well. No, just big grey granite rocks, heavy ones, no diamonds. Why they still think there's diamonds in the bag? Why they still think, well, I must have been carrying the bag for a reason, so I better not put it down. Why they're still buying into some story about the rocks being useful or needed, or something terrible will happen if I put the rocks down. As long as that stuff's in place, they're not going to put the rocks down. They'll just keep carrying the rocks, or they might put the rocks down for a bit and then go, oh, and pick them back up again.
Mm.
But when they get that point, when they get that, and this is like the cost benefit analysis thing, and they go, there's no value in the bag. When it really clicks, it's like, shit, there is no value in the bag. It's just rocks and they're just heavy. Then they'll put it down and not pick it up again. So that's, for me, a lot of the craft for people is helping them to just really take a really fresh look at their reality tunnel from outside of the logic of it. Because inside of the logic of it, of course, the rocks have value. So it's outside of the logic of it where they go, oh, shit. And it's helping people get that mind shift much of the time. And for me, different people, different approaches work. I probably got favorite choices. Also, when I'm doing change work with people, I'm aware that what I do, I don't claim what I do is the best thing to do, or that my way is better than anyone else's way. My way is my way. And if people come to me, they're not going to get the best way of solving the problem. They're going to get the best way I can see. They're going to get my approach. So what I tend to do is I tend to lean into my uniqueness as a change worker. And I will say to people, if you come and work with me, you will get what is uniquely me. That doesn't mean it's the best thing for you. I accept that. But it doesn't make sense for me to go, well, maybe there's a better way I could be doing it. What makes sense for me is to lean into the things that are uniquely me that people will not get anywhere else. So that's kind of what I offer is a particular way of working that largely people will not get anywhere else. Is it the best way? Couldn't possibly say. That remains to be seen for that individual.
Yeah. So playing with these reality tunnels, have you found a way to help yourself see them?
Oh yeah, and that's really what I'm. This program I'm running at the moment, which is called Reality Shape: A Deep Craft. I am doing my very best to teach within the format of this program, or to help people develop expertise in navigating their own reality tunnels and disembedding from their own reality tunnels and these sorts of things. I've called it a deep craft because that's what I believe it is. It's not like a series of techniques any more than someone who's you could meet someone who's a great tennis player and say, could you show me your techniques? And if you ask them that question, you kind of be missing the point. Yeah. Because it's not like they're just a collection of techniques. They've got what I call deep craft. They've got an embodied craft. They know tennis in a Gnostic way deeply, and they know their tennis in a Gnostic way. So, going back to this original point, I said, I kind of been figuring out, been on a journey. I've been a seeker for years. And I went through this phase in the mid 2000s to now. So the last, say, 15 years, 14, 15 years, something like that, of doing a lot of self-transformation. Across that time, I have got progressively more adept at being able to catch reality tunnels, fall out of them, maneuver in relation to them, shine the spotlight of consciousness into their workings, tinker with various aspects of them, notice difference, and to do this sort of like iterative re-engineering process. And it's not like a series of techniques. And I made that clear in the copy for that. It's like, if you're looking for quick techniques, you ain't going to get that now. Because I'm actually faced with a challenge of, I haven't learned to do what I did from a blueprint or a series of techniques. I've learned to do it from personal exploration. There's been a lot of influences. So I'm having to take what's within and what's implicit and make it explicit. So it's why I wanted to do this group as an interactive thing with people able to ask questions, because I think it's through the dialogue that I'll get that out more.
Yeah.
I've got a framework for it. I'm not saying it's the final framework, but I'm sort of doing my best to take something which is an implicit skill set for me and make that explicit. And I know I will do an imperfect job. That is inevitable. At the moment, I am pleased with the feedback that I'm getting, that people seem to be getting goodness from it. So that's the main thing for me. But yes, I have got skill with this. I have got adeptness with this. I get good at doing it. I have extremely high levels of internal acuity for the effect of conceptualization within myself. And what I mean by that is, like, when people come to NLP training, they're introduced to the idea of sensory acuity. And most of the time, at least with the training here in the UK, I know James goes deeper than this with his NLP training, but it's a matter of, like, you start to pay attention to stuff that was always there, but you didn't see it in other people, how they shift, how they respond, how they react. I did a lot of work for a while with Eugene Gendlin's felt sense concept. And felt sense is really just the idea that, and there's a lot of actual science that backs this up that wasn't around when Gendlin came up with this, but our cognitive system co-opts our proprioceptive system in its mental processing. And every concept that we hold within our system, every concept that we bring to bear in the moment, the point of that concept is to have our body move in a certain way. Because all concepts are about driving engagement with the world. So it's to have our body move in a certain way. And what that means is every concept is shaping how we distribute our resources within our body. It's literally changing the physical functioning of our system with every concept we access. Now, our body system has an interoceptive network within it, which means information is coming back from all of our organs, all of our tissues, proprioceptive within our tissues. So what it actually means is, as the body reallocates resources with every single conceptualization, getting us ready to move towards something, move away from something, interact with it this way, interact with it that way, it's constantly re-readying the system, moment by moment by moment. That feels a certain way. And it always does, because of the interoceptive information coming in. And people are familiar with the more coarse end of that feeling system, like strong, overwhelming emotions. If somebody's feeling anxiety, okay, but actually some people still don't spot that there's a felt sense to that. Do you see what I mean? They're actually, they're going, oh, something's wrong. And you go, well, how do you know? And they go, well, I have a feeling here. And it's like, it's a surprise to them that they have a feeling that's telling them, because they were so caught up in it that they were not seeing it. So even with the coarser stuff, some people even haven't necessarily got the acuity to spot that, or they haven't got it yet. But you've got obvious coarse stuff like strong emotions, overwhelming stuff like that. But underneath of that, there's a lot subtler and subtler and subtler stuff. And what people come to realize when they start working with this is every concept has a slightly different, very subtle felt sense to it, or a strong different felt sense, but everything feels different. Just like a sommelier learning about wine. I don't mind a glass of wine, right? But I've got a pretty crude palate, which is like either, oh, I don't like that, or that's quite nice, right? That's the level of refinement I've got with wine. But I have a friend who has done 3 years of study with wine, and she can pick out crazy levels of detail in the taste of the wine. So once you start tuning into the flavors of your own conceptualizations and get real high level of acuity to it, you can immediately, it's like there's a running feedback system telling you that how you're rendering reality is serving you or not, whether it's moving you towards what you want, whether it's moving you away from what you want. And there's like really subtle levels of detail. And I constantly got this running within myself. And it's got high levels of acuity, which means when I tend to render up reality in a way that is not aligned with a choice that my transcendent self might make, I can't not notice it now. It's hard. I don't necessarily know what the conceptualization is yet, but the information set that's going, no, that's not working. That's not right. That's not. So I can kind of feel in and go, right, what is it? And feel into the underpinnings. And when I'm in the underpinnings, I'll let stuff come up, usually in a linguistic way. Like my brain will throw up certain renderings of thoughts, like, I don't know what it might be. uh, well, that's probably not going to work. Maybe a thought will come up, and I'll go, oh, right, that's probably not going to work, and I'll feel into the different aspects of that and go, so how would it be if what's presupposed by it? Like, well, actually, what's presupposed by it is I'm at the victim end of the equation. It's not going to work. Where's my power in that organizational reality? It's not there. And then I can be, well, what are the variables? What am I assuming the variables are in making it work? Well, maybe I've been discounting myself. So, okay, am I willing to make it work? And I might feel into that. Am I willing to make it work? And there'll be like oh, hang on, that wasn't a clear yes. That wasn't a towards valence. I'm not willing to make it work. What is that about? So it's being able to kind of do this detective work and feel into what's going on, but use the felt sense stuff that comes back up as the key source of information to track things and notice. And sometimes what can come out of this is you find that there are key values that you have that you didn't know you had, key concepts that are values. Like I've done so much work on myself, I could pick so many examples, but challenge, for example, if you take the word challenge and the concept that sits underneath of it, for a lot of people, that's a value. They'll rise to a challenge. And if you read self-help literature, it's often just assumed that challenge is a value. So, you might get people reframe problems as challenges. And the assumption is if you reframe a problem as a challenge, that's going to motivate people more. Or not if challenge is an anti-value for them.
Yes.
Right? It's not going to motivate them more. And, I don't know who it is and who it isn't, but the concept challenge for me was not a value. It didn't have a positive valence on it that would pull me towards it. It had a negative valence on it for many years. So I was like, oh, shit. And now if I didn't know that, I could have thought, right, I need to rise to the challenge and think I'm saying useful things to myself, but I'm not. I'm actually just triggering an away from response in myself. So when I was doing that, I did a whole bunch of work on how challenge worked as a value for me in my own system. And I did a thing where I re-engineered the value. I re-engineered the concept. So this is something that I do a lot. I'll take a driver concept and re-engineer it rather than replace it. So I actually turned challenge into a value and had it as a concept have a positive valence on it that started drawing me towards it. And the way that I do that, when I do that, is kind of crude in some ways, or maybe it's deeply sophisticated. I have no idea. But it's almost like if you're in a courtroom and you have the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution and the defense aren't telling the truth. Neither are telling the truth. It isn't like one is the truth and one is a lie. Neither is the truth. That is not the job of prosecution and defense to tell the truth. The job is to build a case. The job is to paint a picture. And it's to paint a picture that is so compelling that the jury get pulled in. So if I want to re-engineer a concept, let's imagine I've put challenge on trial. I don't want to get to the truth about whether challenge is good or challenge is bad. That's not the name of the game here. It's what I call arguing about what is or isn't so. It's a waste of time. What I want to do is I want to recognize, who am I advocating for? I want to advocate for challenge. So my job is like my internal barrister is there to paint an incredible and vivid and rich reality that is going to have me buy into it. And it's not about arguing about what is or isn't so. A good barrister doesn't argue with the jury about what is or isn't so. A good barrister creates something compelling that draws it in, much more like a hypnotist than some, analytical truth teller. So that's what I do. I re-engineer a concept by literally staying out of what I call the truth traps. It's not about truth, and creating a vivid, compelling reality around that that pulls me in and that I can then choose to live into. So my system starts to resonate in that way. And
Mm.
this is like how I do it. And I will regularly pick out, what are the driver concepts here? How are they working? Do I want to switch out a driver concept? Or do I want to actually transform the driver concept itself? And often transforming the driver concept is more powerful, because if you switch it out, you're going to drop back into a situation where the context triggers the old concept anyway. Do you see what I mean? Just because you consciously chose in this moment, I'm going to switch it out, that doesn't mean the old concept isn't still wired in to
Mm.
a whole bunch of triggers and stuff. So you're better off, instead of trying to find all the wiring, all the context in which that old concept is triggered, is wired in, you just go in and re-engineer the concept so it now has a different valence on it and works differently within your system.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I'm aware, by the way, when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm aware this is a technical approach, right? It is, and this is why I called this program Reality Shape a Deep Craft. I didn't want people thinking, oh, yeah, you're going to come in. It's not the easiest approach. I'm not claiming it's the easiest approach. I know it bloody works and it's powerful. But I know there's a development and a lot of technical expertise. So within the system, I've got 4 sub games, what I call 4 sub games within it, which are the 4 sort of sub crafts, expertise sets, which when you develop them, they work together and enable you to do this kind of ongoing re-engineering. Once you start getting into it, it's like, seems complex to learn, but once you get it, it's like anything, it's complex to learn. Playing guitar is complex to learn. If you're new to it, there's work to be done. There's foundational stuff to be put in place. But ultimately, the payoff for me is that I can rapidly change stuff quite quickly on the fly without having to take a lot of time out and go and sit in a corner and do lots of processing stuff. I could be literally down at the tram stop, tune into my system, go, what is it that's happening here? Drop through, pull that out. And I've got just faster and faster at just re-rendering things as they need to be re-rendered on the fly in order to shift my reality tunnel from one that's not serving me to one that I might need in about 3 minutes from now.
That's fast and pretty handy.
It is handy, and like I'm not. I also want to say I'm not claiming that there isn't more that I can do to develop. I'm not like, yes, I'm some god now that never gets caught up, that never gets tripped up or anything like that. Of course, I'm going to get tripped up. I'm going to get caught up. But I'm like phenomenally more adept than I used to be at doing this stuff. But I like to think that I'm a crude amateur compared to where I'm going to be, by keeping on leaning into it and keeping on getting better and better at doing it. And I also know that because of the nature of these things, however good I've got at seeing and navigating reality tunnels, there is a whole other layer that I'm just not seeing.
Yeah.
Right? There always is. Wherever you go, here you are. And when you're here, you don't see the reality tunnel that you're in. So I've got like a broad scope reality tunnel, which I call my transcendent self, which I've created across time. And it's a place to move from. But I'm aware that transcendent self is bound up in a load of invisible paradigms and stuff that I don't see. So there's an infinite possibility for continually outframing your reality tunnels. So wherever I'm at, I don't know how much further there is to go. I suspect infinitely further is the answer. But it's crazy heady stuff. And most people on my YouTube channel, they go, well, James, can you do another hand stick tutorial? It's not, it's a different game from that. And it's ludicrous of me to expect that everybody who's into my hypnosis stuff would also be into this crazy head job stuff as well.
Well, do them a favor if they are, but I certainly would be enjoying having a play and checking it out. And I'm disappointed I missed the first one, but probably with zones, I had a hard time.
Everything's on replays at the moment, so if people want to jump on, I don't actually mind too much when people jump on in the thing. All I say to people who are in there is take charge of your own learning needs, and if people ask the questions they want to ask, somewhere, somehow, I will address those through additional audios, through, if there's mop-up questions, things that have gone unaddressed. And I'm also, the way I'm running that, because I've got the Facebook group running, I'm leaving the Facebook group running after the fact, for another kind of 4 weeks after the closing of the program, so that people can, tidy up any loose ends that's going on for themselves, and make it as useful as it can possibly be. And I really do appreciate everybody who's on it and who's been engaging, because they are co-creators of it. They are the people that are helping pull things out that I won't consciously see. It's only when somebody says, well, how do you do that bit? Because to me, a lot of this stuff's like walking, right? I don't think about how I walk. I just walk. I've been doing it a ton. It's only as somebody says, well, do you bring your heel down before your toe, or your toe down before your heel? I go, well, hang on a second, let me just check.
Hmm.
I've got to have the question asked sometimes to pull out a key detail that otherwise I just go, well, you just do that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate everyone who's been proactive in asking the questions, and the better the more detailed, the more nitty gritty, the better. The more difficult the question, the better. It's cool.
So if somebody wants to join in late, where do they go to?
If people go to my hypnosiswithouttrance.com site, there is a section called Home Study, where you will find a store where you can buy almost none of the things there, because I closed the store down. So for a crazy reason, I won't explain why. But I did that. So there's only 2 things now for sale in the store, which is self-hypnosis and personal alchemy, which is actually related to this stuff as well. And that's a program I put out in January, but recorded a year before that. And then if you scroll down, there's Reality Shaper Deep Craft, and you can click through on there. No point being distracted by anything else, because if you go through to any of the other pages, it will say currently not for sale on those other things. But there's only 2 things. Ironically, it's on Hypnosis Without Trance, and you can't buy any of my hypnosis training programs on there anymore. Because I crazily closed them down, because I thought I was going to have a new thing called my online deep apprenticeship available and ready for November, which I was going to launch at Hypno Thoughts. But the tech, projects always overrun. The tech side of it just overran. I wasn't going to get it ready to launch. So I missed that deadline, and then I just had all this other stuff in instead, and it's pushed the deadline back. So the shop wasn't supposed to be empty for this long. It was supposed to be being replaced by a new hypnosis offering. But, that's the way it's rolled. And around about November time, I can get back working on that. The problem was, because I missed the window of the launch, I had all these other commitments come in afterwards.
After those.
Yeah. And then I didn't have any time to finish the stuff that needed to be finished. And I'm not going to get to work on that till November again. So missing the August deadline, I kicked it right back down the road. So that's another story. But if people want to go on and do the Reality Shaper Deep Craft, they'll find that on the home study page of Hypnosis Without Trance. Just scroll down, it'll be there somewhere. The more the merrier.
And if somebody's watched this or listened to this and felt they connected with you and that your coaching methods might help them personally?
Yeah. I've got some stuff on my jamestripp.co.uk website. If people want to book me for one-on-one coaching, I'm likely not going to put together another coaching group. The last couple of years, I used to do coaching groups years ago, then I stopped. And I started doing coaching groups over the last couple of years again. And every one that I do is better than the last. And I'm really enjoying the group dynamics in coaching. So I might be doing another coaching group soon, but it depends on what people want, because the coaching groups I tend to do are usually more for business-minded people. They want to create income through their expertise in life, but it ends up being a lot of inner work as well, because most of the reasons people are not creating the income that they want in their lives is not really because they don't know the right marketing strategy, it's because they're hanging back. They're not really letting themselves live into it because of hidden fears, and their reality tunnels are saying, well, I'll do that, but only when I've done this, and all of this kind of thing, instead of just opening up the bandwidth and connecting. So I really enjoy working with people who want to create something in the world, though, and want to make a difference. and it's just a matter of like freeing themselves up to fully do that. So
Fantastic.
another group will come up at some point, and I will announce to the world. And if anyone's watching this, by the way, and you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, that's the place where I tend to be most active, even though I do drop off for a few weeks at a time from time to time. But I put out videos reasonably regularly on there, and will do for the foreseeable future.
Yes, it's great. I recommend checking it out.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm sure some people connect with something personally out of that might inspire them to make some change in their own lives.
That will be fantastic. That's the name of the game. So thank you very much for having me on.